When the interstate system was first introduced in 1956, the population was more centered in the eastern part of the country. The historical cities of the eastern seaboard had more power, and so the planning favored those areas. At this time, they didn't see the significant population shift and growth of the south and west coming. Because of this, the interstate system fell behind infrastructurally and wasn't able to keep up with the needs of the car-centric growth that was experienced. The idea of two metropolitan areas with a combined population of over 7.2 million not being connected by an interstate highway is an insane idea, right? Well, this is actually what the states of Arizona and Nevada are experiencing. And so there's a plan created for a highway to connect these cities, as well as possibly connect an entire region of the country in the future. This highway is Interstate 11. Before the video starts though, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. We've been growing recently, and with the end of the year coming up, I'd love to get to a good place with the channel. So if you appreciate the content, subscribing helps me out a ton, and it's super easy for you. Thank you. So let's take a step back and talk about I-11 in its current state, and then give an overview of its plan for the future. So currently, I-11 is a 23-mile-long interstate that connects the suburb of Henderson, Nevada, to the Arizonan border near the Hoover Dam. It starts at an interchange with I-215, 515, and State Route 564. From there, it works as a bypass of Henderson, traveling through Railroad Pass before then going completely around Boulder City and serving as more of a major bypass of the city, originally alleviating traffic significantly in the exurb. After it passes Boulder City, it takes a turn to the north and finally passes over the border on the Mike O'Callahan-Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge, which rolls off the tongue. At the border, it then ends and becomes US 93, and it continues in Arizona. This stretch of highway was opened on August 9th, 2018. As Nevada completed its part of the deal to connect the two major cities of Las Vegas and Phoenix together by interstate. Now, on the Arizona side of things, nothing is currently completed, but we can go through the plans of this highway that would do wonders for the state's transportation system and completely change long-distance interregional travel. So first, moving south from the border, it would follow the already completed US 93 corridor to Kingman, continuing on that route towards Phoenix before meeting Wickenburg. Now in Wickenburg, it will stray off the US 93 and US 60 corridor, instead going straight to the south and avoiding Phoenix. This gives a good option though, because there will be an easy route into the city on US 60, which goes through Surprise, Peoria, and Glendale before terminating directly in the downtown. Anyways, the future plan of I-11 would be to continue south from Wickenburg, instead passing through Buckeye on its way around the major metro as a western bypass. From Buckeye, it would then get a bit more complicated. Staying west of the Estrella Mountain Region Park, it would make its way to Maricopa and run parallel to I-10 for a short period before possibly meeting up with I-10. It is then undecided which route it would take. There are two options, with one taking it west to Saguaro National Park through Picture Rocks and the Avra Valley, and the other meeting I-10 north of Tucson and staying concurrent with the highway through the city before then also following the route of I-19 south of the city. If the west option is chosen, it would then meet up with Suaharita before continuing south on the former route of I-19, which would then become I-11. So why hasn't this been completed yet? You'd think it would be an obvious route that would be completed in the early days of freeway construction and the interstate system. Well, to find that out, we need to go back into the history of this project and talk about all the details and why it hasn't been completed. So going back to as late as the 1990s, the connection between Las Vegas and Phoenix was mostly a two-lane road, with dangerous areas because of terrain as well as the Hoover Dam, which serves as a major bottleneck for regional commerce. So going forward to 2010, a bridge was completed next to the dam to take travelers over the dangerous gap in a safer fashion. This was the start of the Boulder City Bypass, the initial stretch of Interstate 11. Over the course of the next decade, work was done to create this 23-mile freeway around the Las Vegas exurb and into the city. In 2018, the freeway was officially opened with the I-11 designation. Now, this is obviously very recent if we're talking about this type of history. It's only been 5 years since then, and that's where I-11 currently is. There's one main reason for this, and that would be Arizona. See, the completed portions were the parts that Nevada needed to complete to connect Las Vegas and Phoenix. Now it was on Arizona, which had a lot more freeway to build and less support to do it. Currently, US 93 between the Hoover Dam and Wickenburg, an important city for this project, is not what is needed. There have been significant upgrades over the course of this century, adding new lanes and widening the highway to 4 lanes in places where it was previously 2. But there's still so much to be done. Outside of Wickenburg, the highway is still just 2 lanes, with significant traffic problems because of this. Currently, this area is under construction to widen it, so there are basically just some common sense upgrades going on, with roads being upgraded where it's needed, but there hasn't been a major commitment to really make this highway happen. Looking forward south of Wickenburg, though, the highway is meant to go around Phoenix toward Tucson, and this is looking a lot more bleak. At the moment, the main problem is obviously in funding. There's still a lot of talk over whether this should actually happen and where it should happen. Officials in the area support it, with people like the mayor of Maricopa, Goodyear, and Casa Grande making supportive statements. Both senators are in support, and multiple U.S. representatives in the area have signaled their support. But currently, it's just not funded. In 2021, the final Tier 1 environmental impact statement was published, meaning there is progress on the route. But if we look at the overall funding needed, it feels unbelievable. The project in Arizona could cost around $7 billion between all the upgrades and new highways and studies. The state just isn't in a place where it can afford a lot of this just yet. There are ways they could cut back on prices, including the no-build option in Tucson, where it would just run through the city concurrent with I-10 and I-19. That plan would have a lot less environmental impact, avoiding Saguaro National Park, the park it would greatly affect if it ran directly next to it or through it. So will the highway ever be built in Arizona? I would say absolutely. There's not an insane amount of stuff or reasons why the state couldn't get this road built. And at least between Las Vegas and Phoenix, it's well on its way to being completed. So now let's look at the long-term plans of the entire route, because the highway is supposed to serve as a much more important route to the western U.S. in the future. So obviously the plan between Las Vegas and the Mexican border is pretty set in stone. But the highway is also supposed to go the other way. First, it would connect to Reno, a major long-distance interregional route. It would go through an empty area, much like a lot of this route would. But it would serve as more of a connecting route for the U.S. than an immediate need to connect cities. This is the other stretch I could see being built in the near future, with the route continuing north into even more rural desert areas in the Great Basin. So next, it could either connect to Boise somehow, or continue on the east side of the Sierra Nevadas and Cascades. Most likely, it would continue to Bend, Oregon, a growing area with no interstate connection. Moving north, it would likely connect to somewhere like the Dalles before crossing the border into Washington to somewhere like Yakima. The route from here is relatively unclear, but it would find its way north into Omak before crossing the Canadian border into an important central valley in British Columbia. Now let's be realistic here. The northern part of this route will very likely never happen. Though it would serve as an effective connector to the Great Basin and the interior west, it's just not enough of a pressing issue. And the cities in Oregon and Washington aren't in need of a major interstate route. Maybe at some point in the future if these cities continue to grow, but right now the tens of billions of dollars it would take to construct feels outlandish. So that's it for the complete plan of I-11. The project could cost anywhere from $7 billion to $30 billion if the entire route was built. We don't know what the future looks like for this highway, besides the stretch between Las Vegas and Phoenix. So it will be interesting to see how it develops. Thanks for watching. Thank you to the members this week: Bryson, Sturfels, Karen Hudson 81, Jerome McCall, Dominic Psyche, Rosebud 4, KMS 162, Jeremy Jarvis, Christopher DeAngelis, JL Darkbird, Elijah Pass, Big Pasty, Jeremy Crone, Wolflink 73, Snyder Schwein, Florida Jake, Stormy Knight, Nikita Martinov, Benjamin Whiting, Ryan Devins, and Hazev the Wolf. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate the support on the channel and everything you do for me. If you want to become a member, the link is down in the description below. It's just an easy thing that helps me as a person and the channel if you appreciate the content. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.